Hello, this is David White from Sportsman's Emporium. I'm going to talk a little bit about winter and late winter and early spring fly selection for fly fishermen. You know, most people know for fly fishing that the peak time of the year is really that late April and through May and June, where the bugs are hatching on the water and the fish are rising up to the surface to eat them. And you know, it's basically when we're fishing, they call that matching the hatch. And you're oftentimes using dry flies that float on the surface and to catch those fish that time of year. But this time of year, there's not a whole lot of hatching going on. There's a couple small hatches, but in general, they're not fished very often this time of year, because even now that there are a few bugs like the winter black stones hatching right now, the fish don't actively feed for them on the surface like they do in the springtime when it warms up a little bit. So basically, if you want to get out fishing this time of year and better your chances, you'd be better off to use nymph flies, which are basically the larva and pupa stages of these dry flies. Right now, you know, because the big bug hatches are going to happen later in the year, all the nymphs are in the water. You know, they've been there all year growing up and increasing in size. It's not a bad thing to go a little bit bigger than what most people would later in the season, because you will catch fish. Two of the flies I like this time of year obviously will be the hare's ear. That's probably one of the most popular flies, and I think almost every beginner book I've ever read talks about the hare's ear nymph. It's a really good fly to imitate mayfly nymphs in particular, and you can fish them and tie them and buy them in different colors. These ones here are a tan. You can get them in black, you can get them in olive green, even pink and orange for more attractor patterns for steelhead. Very popular fly, very effective, and they come in a bunch of different sizes also. This time of year, I like to fish 12s and 14s, because that, in my opinion, is about the average size of nymph that is under the rocks right now. You know, once we have the spring hatches, that size actually decreases, and the bugs that are left tend to be a little bit smaller. And it's just the whole life cycle of the bug. A couple more flies I like are called copper johns. These also can be in different colors. They represent stoneflies very well, and I really like the actual copper color one that looks just like copper wire is my favorite, but a really popular one is the chartreuse green copper john. That's an excellent fly. It's a very good wintertime fly. When I used to fish up in Pennsylvania a lot, and it was my full-time job to fly fish, you know, these were my go-to fly this time of year, especially in late February all the way through March. The copper john produced more fish than anything. Now, last but not least, and this is probably my favorite overall fly for anywhere in the entire country, from Maine to West Virginia to Montana, the pheasant tail nymph I think is by far the best. It really doesn't imitate a particular bug. It just looks like a lot of bugs. This time of year, because the winter brown and the winter black stones are hatching, I think that the smaller pheasant tails are more effective than the big ones. They really do have that color tone and shape of the black stones in their nymph stage, and I think if you're fishing anywhere from a 16 to a 20, that's an excellent fly, especially down on the Elk River and down in southern West Virginia right now. A little further north, I think you can go bigger, but these flies right here, basically 3 different types and a couple different sizes and colors, you know, that's really primarily what's going to be in my arsenal for this time of year. I'm always going to have a lot more flies on me, but you know, most of the time it's going to be one of these bugs. And until really in mid-April, when more bugs start hatching and coming out, I'll primarily stick to these basic flies.